segment on Good Morning Anambra this lovely Tuesday morning, the 25th day of March 2025. And in the studio, we want to be discussing weather and measurements using accurate data to shape our climate and awareness. But before then, in case you're just joining us, my name is Ajiluchukwu Okabwe.
And my name is Obinna Ikejiku on the discussion segment of the Good Morning Anambra this morning.
Yeah, our guest is well seated here in the studio. Dr. Chukwudi Nzeiwu, lecturer, Department of Geography and Meteorology, Nnamdi Azikiwe University. Good morning, Dr. Chukwudi. It's a pleasure having you around.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're talking about weather. Definitely, that is what we all experience every day, every minute, and the measurement using accurate data to shape our climate awareness. And talking about our climate awareness, we are in the era of climate change. So many things we call it climate change, the ice peak melting, desertification, encroachment, and the rest of it all. Now, in order for man to predict the way of God, because I see nature as God's creation, and then scientists, scientists as those trying to study what God has created. And then in the area of meteorology, these are people that study the weather and the rest of it all. Yeah. And now tell us the predictions that we've been having and how accurate it has always been. And then on the other part of this climb, people finding it so difficult to adhere to what you scientists predict as foreseeable circumstance happening in our weather.
We know that we live in a data-driven society, and every single thing we do is driven by data. For you to achieve sustainable development goals, you need lots of data. And over time in Nigeria, our climate prediction has actually improved over time. Because these days, you see, Nigerian Meteorological Agency, they release seasonal climate predictions, which they release almost February of every year. And they've done that for this year. Yeah. In fact, last month we did a downscaling of that same SCP at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka. Now, and when you see that prediction they release for the year, because it's a guideline, it's supposed to be an early warning tool. Just that most often our people actually not concerned with such information, but because this is actually what affects us on a daily basis. Now, if you look at NIME prediction for this year alone, you see that Anambra State, for example, it's amongst it's among the states that is expected to experience the highest temperature. In fact, on highest warming based on a 10-year warming record, that 2024 has been was predicted as the warmest year on record, even by the WMO, that is World Meteorological Organization.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, you see that from Anambra prediction, you see that Anambra State alone. So let's not be so that we wouldn't see the heat issue we're having last month and this month as something out of the ordinary. It's been predicted, and this was released in February. So I've had this information. It helps us to be able to adjust to heat stress, to incidence of malaria, to meningitis occurrence, and surprisingly, even meningitis that we know that we said is a northern thing.
Yeah.
There are cases last year recorded in Delta State and Cross River. We are close by. And these are temperature-related diseases. So you see that over time, the NIME prediction has actually gotten more. They've improved their precision level, so that you can actually see. In fact, the one they did for this year, we're going to come up with some data for different local governments in Anambra State. In fact, they've said that this year, Anambra State is going to receive, most part of Anambra State will receive over 2,000 millimeters of rainfall. And you see, Obaru and Ihiala is going to receive the highest. And these are flood-prone areas in Anambra State. So how prepared are we, assuming flood comes now?
Now, talking about your preparation, is it a case of your organization, you understand, not doing enough sensitization and awareness in prepping people to the hazards that they will face when these predictions begin to make manifest?
Well, as to level of preparedness, I think because if you go to our department, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Department of Geography and Meteorology, we do that every year. In fact, it is a collaboration with NIMET. So imagine when NIMET did, they released their SCP in February at Abuja. We attended. The Vice Chancellor of Nnamdi Azikiwe was in attendance.
Okay.
And these were, and they were able to, they came down to Anambra last month to do a downscaling. That is, and we caught some farmers. Last year we had lots of farming cooperative societies. This information was actually, in fact, this year's own was interpreted in Igbo. Different languages, so to help the common man to actually understand what is happening. So you see that, and so at the level of preparedness, yes, we NIMET is, they are ready. And it's just that most often this information, when they come out, people don't know what to do with it. And so what they are now doing is to come at the local level to tell people, come to a more or less like a sensitization program. That was what we did last month. We invited farmers to see the early rains you had this year is a false rain. Oh. Don't go and plant, because most of that is the issue. Because when you see we had substantial rain,
twice or 3 times.
And you might think that rain is here. No, in fact, most of the onset of rain for Anambra State is upwards of ending of March, April. So Anambra is going to have early rainfall, early onset, and late cessation. So we're going to expect lots of rain this year. Okay. But what happened, the rain that happens is what we call pre-onset, is a false rain. If you plant by now, your crop must have died because of heat. So expected that by Anambra, most farmers in Anambra State were told them, see, wait, but when you enter a first week of April, you start planning on planting your crops. So because if you are planted because of the substantial rain that comes, maybe the heat you had must have killed them. Yes. So as the level of preparedness, I think NIMET is ready. And what we're doing our best at the local level at the department. Okay, so all we need is just to reach out more. To farmer group, because agriculture is most impacted as to temperature rainfall.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at, you've been saying a lot, but why is it so important for us to have data collection in terms of weather and all that? Why is it so important for us to have it?
Okay. Yeah. Why is it important for us to have data? So I'll put it this way. Like I said earlier, I said that we live in a data-driven society. And take, for example, a businessman that runs the consumer goods industry. They pick data on consumer behaviors, pick data on purchasing behaviors of consumers. They'll be able to know what kind of goods do people buy, what kind of a brand do people buy, and they'll invest resources in that. So data is very important because knowing that climate affects us daily basis. Data is critical for important decision making as to health, as to agriculture, as to transportation. Aviation is important, and that's why this is very critical to collect this data. And we've tried as much as we can, and through several collaborations. In fact, our department at Nnamdi Azikiwe University has 2 standard meteorological stations automated, connected to NIMET server. So whatever thing we're picking here is covering Oka and environ and a greater part of Anambra State. And this information is collected by now. So we have data, and as much as we use it for research and everything, that's what we need to reach out more. Because data is critical for, be it you're pursuing sustainable development goals, whatever, just for example, whatever the government of Anambra State is doing currently is built on data. The developmental strides we recorded is built on data, because development is being pushed to places where data says this is what is lacking. So data is critical. So whatever we are picking, whatever data instrumentation we have is very critical. And that's why we take it very seriously to collect this data. And mind you, NIMET data, the one we have at Anambra, we pick climate data every 5 minutes. Yes, we have lots of data, and if you go, you see wonderful things we do with that down there. So
you also say something about Anambra State, being probably one of the warmest states. Are you talking about it being one of the warmest states in the southeastern part of the country, or the country at large? Because we know, or rather, on a personal level, I know that we have states like Sokoto,
yes,
and in fact, most of the northern states. These are states with prevalent, really very warm, like say.
High temperatures,
yes, high temperature. So, what's
okay? Now, the idea of warming as to Anambra State is much of part of Southeast. Okay, take for example, last month based on NIMET SCP forecast. Now, Anambra State, Oka particularly, is expected to have a temperature upwards of 35.4 degrees Celsius. That's very high. It's very high. So imagine when the outside temperature is 35. So you wouldn't be surprised that the kind of heat or sunlight you have during the day is crazy. So you see that even to walk short distances is difficult. So, yeah, it's not that and surprisingly, there are some states, Anambra is higher. The temperature for 35 degrees Celsius, it's more or less associated with the northern part of Nigeria. But there are some states in the north that the temperature in Anambra is higher. So it's not like we're comparing to the north. The only thing is that when this temperature increases, there are consequences. Okay, what are the consequences? Now, it's expected that malaria outbreak is expected to be much in Anambra State from April. See, March, April, May. There's going to be high cases of malaria outbreak because it's temperature dependent. So that's what with climate change. Because when temperature gets, the global temperature increases, places that were usually not too high, that rarely record high temperature, will start recording high temperatures. So these are the consequences of the global warming issue. So it's not surprising. And mind you, there are so many things so many factors you put in place when they do this forecast. Okay, look at our city now, Oka. There are lots of, the level of urbanization is much. In fact, it's at astronomical levels. Now, what are the concerns do we have as to vegetation? So these are the things that actually helps reduce our temperature. So look at across the entire Oka city, for example. You see that there are really considerations as to green environment, green parks, that could have helped us to, these act as heat sink. Yes, mitigate this. Yeah, so it's not as if like it's an unusual thing. It's based on the indices or variables that determines this forecast. So the temperature of an Oka is not a strange thing. It's expected. Because although it covers, much of their predictions is expected that most part of the southeast, particularly Oka, Anambra State and Enugu State, are meant to have high temperature. It's there. Yeah. It's on their database.
Now, talking about the database and then the weather focus collection and all of that you do at NIMET, talking about what happens here too in Oka and Anambra State. Most of your information is meant to be at the working tool for our farmers in order to increase food production. Yeah. How well do you have that synergy to work with the farmers in order to boost food production in Nigeria, but using probably a region as a template?
Okay, well, I speak a lot about what NIMET did and what NIMET, or what NIMET has done. The only thing I needed to say here is, let's not forget that where I'm from, Nandazikwe University. So that my department has had a lot of collaboration with NIMET in recent time, and like I said earlier, what we're doing to help bring this information to lowest level that can help our farmers, for example, is just like what we did last month. That is the downscaling of the seasonal climate prediction, which was done by NIMET in Abuja. And so what we did was what we usually do every year. We started this last year. So we call farmers groups, cooperative societies, and we go to villages, get these people. At least we had some collaboration with some farmers from Amansi section of Anambra State. Then they were there. They do come. We do invite them. So while the NIMET people and also staff from the department tends to explain all these things to them. That's what we say. Can we tell them? That's what we say, like I said earlier. We told them, see, when you early March or February, all those rain is not good enough to tell you. It's not good enough for you to go and plant. That's what I said. That the best time for you to start planting is from April. So we've had lots of collaborations with farmer groups, small cooperative societies. Yes, we have lots of, and it's a continuous engagement. So we started it last year. So we tried it again this year, and so as time goes on, we're able to check our scorecard and see how much progress we've made on that. So for now, that's what we're trying to do, is to do to reach out, to do some community engagements, and so to pass this information to them.
What if some farmers decide to have this artificial form of probably watering the plants and all
irrigation?
That? Yeah, irrigation. Exactly. Yeah. Is it going to also negatively?
No. For me, I would even
affect the productivity of the crops?
No, yeah, I don't think it will not affect. The one we're trying to, much of these predictions is going to impact those that depend on rain-fed agriculture. So because someone that runs an irrigated farm, has control over a couple of things. So if irrigation farming can help you to do all-season planting, anytime, yeah, exactly, because you have water available. Okay, so which is a very critical component. So much of this impact is going to affect those farmers which are more of subsistence farmers that depend on rain-fed agriculture. So these are people that this might likely affect more. And even for the people that do irrigation agriculture, this information is also critical for them because it's going to help them to know, okay, at what point do I need to now supply a certain amount of water to avoid excessive supply of water to your plant, to your farm, which could lead to leaching. So this information is very critical, be it in agriculture. And now that the world is moving towards precision agriculture, so it's critical. Whatever thing we're doing, I think there is a future for that.
Yeah, very, very critical information gathering and the rest of it. But then at the same time, you begin to wonder, how come we have periodic flooding in most parts of the Niger Delta area, the middle belt area of this country? Does it mean that apart from the warnings you give, governments, you understand, are not doing enough in order to save the lives of people, businesses, and then even crops? Because when this flood comes, they just wash up everything the farmers have invested their yearly investment on. Is there no way NIMET can now come up with the federal government to have a collaboration on how to probably maybe have a channel where this flood water will go rather than spoiling? You were telling me about Ihiala and Orumba, talking about the increased rainfall they will be having. Is there no way you can meet with the government to make them understand that now is the time to begin to make alternative routes for this flood water to take, rather than spoiling the farmlands for farmers?
Well, like I said,
your organization doesn't have any partnership with SEMA, NEMA, and the rest of it all?
I think all these organizations work together because Nigerian Meteorological Agency is an agency on its own within the federal ministry.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, whatever thing the NIMET release is an early warning tool. So it's when they release this thing, agencies like SEMA or NEMA picks this thing up. And that's why they send invitations across to all relevant agencies when they release this forecast. So it's going to help them for preparedness. Okay, because it's when it's released, and let's say, for example, the State Emergency Management Agency was assuming they are in attendance, they will have that document, and it's going to guide them, obviously, across whatever doing that. So they'll be able to plan. And the most important thing in disaster preparedness is to be able to mitigate risk
and reduce
impact.
Costs. Yeah,
it's preparedness. Yeah. Because assuming you are armed with the requisite information, you'll be able to know, okay, fine. If Obaru, axis of Anambra State, which is almost flooded on yearly basis, is going to receive about 2,200 millimeters of rainfall this year. Okay, someone will say, okay, fine. They will speak to the government and say, okay, we expect this year. So they prepare for it. And that's how you can be able to reduce the level of impact. Most often, why we have serious issues is that, a level of impact is when we are not prepared. If you're not prepared, when disaster hits, the impact is going to be enormous. So, I believe the NIMET agency have been doing their part, and for us at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, we're doing our part. Okay, we do our own research.
Or is it the, will I say, collective negligence of the fact that we don't take into cognizance that we are blessed in this part? We don't suffer hurricane, earthquake, mudslide, and the rest of it, like other places suffer. The little flooding that we do manage to have on a periodic yearly basis, we still can manage it. So what happens if we were having earthquake like the likes of Turkey and Japan? That means we probably would have been wiped off the face of the earth.
So what you said is the truth. Maybe because of the kind of how calm our environment
exactly
is.
So we are taking it for granted.
That's why we take it for granted, exactly, because like when this information was released February, I can tell you, many people do not know that this thing is in existence. Because, for example, myself, I expect that obviously by around April, May, there's going to be spike in malaria occurrence. So for my household, I already know, okay, fine, what to do, and for this issue of heat, excessive heat, there's always about heat stress. Most people die from heat stress and we don't even...
Exactly.
And this is just simply a case of what? If you are armed with this information that this particular part of the month in the year, this is going to happen, and you'll be ready for it. Let's say, and now, if you have this information as, okay, that rains are going to be high, or early rains, and based on the cumulative rainfall for the year is going to be over 2,000 millimeters. That's a lot of rainfall. You can start planning. Okay, these riverine communities, you start issuing communities maybe through PGs, through President Generals of Communities.
Dr. Chukuri, sorry to intersect you. I've heard people come up to talk about, that's the environmentalists come up to talk about dredging the Niger. Dredging the Niger, will it help a bit this flooding that we normally experience every year? Probably dredging it all the way from Niger State or thereabouts down to here. Is it going to help in any way? Because I've heard people talk about dredging the Niger.
Well,
you remember that flooding that happened 2012?
2012. It repeated in 2022.
But it wasn't as devastating as that of 2012.
No,
that
2022
it was more in 2022.
You sure?
Yeah.
And look at that. You should be the expert.
There's something called the cyclical flooding. Like, you see that if it happened in 2012, 2022 is the 10-year gap. So there's going to be at some point, there's going to be higher, the flooding is expected to occur. If it continues like that,
2032.
Exactly. So now, it happened in 2012. And after that incident, from that experience, we couldn't even come back to, okay, assuming this thing occurs again, what can we do? It happened in 2022 again. And it's more diverse because if you go through the internet, you see lots cases of what? Reported death. And that is the highest level of loss.
Communities totally cut off.
Yeah. And but as to dredging, the issue about dredging Niger is, I don't know, I don't want to delve into that, but it's highly silted. The Niger is highly silted. If you go to Onitsha Park, you see that it's highly silted. And siltation is because of a massive erosion coming internal. Sediment, that is the depth of the river is reducing because of sand or silt that is picked up from the upper part of the stream, or maybe whatever stream rivers that are flowing into the Niger. And knowing that Anambra is highly erosive.
The mining of sand.
Mining of sand. So this pushes sand or sediment, what we call sediment, into the Niger River and reducing the depth. So, and when that happens, the amount of, let's say, it's supposed to take a certain amount of water, as when it's not silted, it can take it. But when it's silted, then that same volume of water flows in. It's going to overflow the banks and flooding occurs. So the idea of the region Niger, yes, is good. Although there are also environmental considerations because you're going to disrupt the entire ecosystem. But it's very important for flood management. Dredging is important because let's say we have certain rivers in Anambra, in Oka or Bibia or around us. If they are silted, it's important to dredge them. Because if you don't dredge them, it's going to be flood.
Any little intake of water, the
bank will overflow the bank. Yes. Dredging Niger is critical. Is very important, but it's a capital-intensive project. So it's just to understand that with government be ready to fund that. So there are so many considerations as to that. So
capital-intensive project.
Yes.
Well, on that note, let us take a pause here and then go for a street walk, get to hear from our street parliamentarians on the discussions we are having here in the studio. We'll come back after this short break. Don't go anywhere. The show continues.
This has to do with do I call it thermometer or what? Yes. So that you can, it's not a thing that is common in our society. But be that as it may, we use the weather. Sometimes when the cock crows, when there is rainfall, we monitor the weather. From the way the weather exists, determines how we do things. Because no typical Igbo man would like to go and walk when there is rainfall. And when the sun is too high, no typical Igbo man would like to walk under the sun. So there's no way we can actually say that this is what we are going to do until the weather decides. The weather has the final say. That is why sometimes we have weather change, climate change, and this and that. So in fact, so long as God created us, He owns us and He knows when the weather changes. So he has the final say, so long as I'm concerned.
Actually, scientifically, the Meteorological Society of Nigeria, they used to tell us about the weather forecast, which will help the farmers to know when to plant for better crop and food production. But in the olden days, our forefathers, they used to count the time of rainy season and dry season with their normal planting months. But nowadays, due to scientific approaches, we rely on the meteorologists, and some of these things doesn't work. Like yesterday, everybody was not expecting a heavy downpour, but it really happened, and it's really affecting the food production in our region. And I believe accurate weather forecast, if we follow the scientific approach, it will enhance food security. But actually, our subsequent farmers, our farmers in the riverine areas, they don't actually believe on meteorologists. They believe on their obsolete and their local means of calculating weather forecast.
For us to get the accurate data available, and for us to get this available, we need to have the right equipment and the needed manpower. I think this is the challenge we actually have in Nigeria that is making our weather prediction. We are not having the needed accurate data. So when we have the right technologies to predict the weather, and it will be accurate, and we have the right scientific manpower to carry out this prediction. I think when all these are available, we have the accurate data. And I think this is where government and other necessary bodies need to come in. So they need to invest in technologies and in training of manpower. So when we have all this available, then I think it's not an issue for us to have accurate data. Then when we have this accurate data, we can easily make use of them to plan our daily activities.
Glad to have you back. We've heard it from our street parliamentarians there. I think from what we gathered, government, the agencies that have to do with managing disasters in Nigeria, talking about NEMA and SEMA, they need to be more proactive. It's not when the flood comes up, you see politicians on Kenu, House of Rep members, stoning people with Indomie and rice. That's not what we need. What we need is prevention before this flood comes. And now, let me come back to you, Dr. Chukwudi. In your own, because we're wrapping up now, what do you think the government can do in order to make life a lot easier? People lose their farmland every day, their crops, their earning. Some go as far as even losing their homes and become homeless. Imagine you owning a house, when the flood comes, you become homeless, and they take you to what would I call IDP camps and the rest of it all. It doesn't really speak well of a government that has intention of taking care of its citizens. What do you think can be done in order to avert this or bring it to the barest minimum?
I think one of the things that is necessary for government to do is government needs to invest into disaster preparedness, because when you anticipate that something is going to happen and you prepare for it, when it eventually happens, the level of impact will be reduced to the barest minimum. But when you are not even ready and flood happens or natural disaster occurs, then the level of impact will be much, and it's going to affect people, because people's lives are on the line. People can lose their life.
But these agencies we're talking about do get allocation on a yearly basis. So what do they do with the money? Don't they use it to prepare for issues like this?
Well, the thing is, they best understand how they use the allocation. But from what we see, little is being done as to preparing for disaster, because we know that flooding is a yearly occurrence.
Yes.
So how do we prepare for that? In as much as there are so many researchers that have gone into disaster preparedness, but who are you? In fact, if you go online and view some of these releases by INAMED, you see that it will be easier for us to manage disaster. It's just that we don't take this data seriously. Everybody is pursuing yearly allocations, and because assuming we run a system whereby your agency will be given allocation based on on a performance rating of what you do the previous year, then agencies will sit up. Because it's very critical, because at least in every year they do allocation. If agencies of government are being measured based
on productivity,
performance index, and is critically measured, you see that all of them will sit up. Because assuming they are working, most of these losses will incur. People are losing their lives.
Yes, people are losing their homes.
That's the annoying thing. People are losing their homes, losing their lives because of something that could have been prevented. Because someone sits in the office and decides not to do their job.
Or is it that they benefit more when these disasters come and then they now go on palliative sharing? Is that their cash cow?
Well, that is, I don't know, but I do know that we're in Nigeria, and you know, definitely, you know, they are the country we're in.
Because they are very quick to share rice when flooding happens. By the time they now move people to IDP camps, you see politicians there sharing rice, trying to, you know,
because I don't know why this.
Whereas the preventive measures to have taken before the flooding, nobody does that. I don't understand what's the kind of leaders we have in this part of the world.
Before we go, let's look at collaboration.
Yeah.
How can we collaborate?
Okay.
How can you know, your agency, you know, collaborate with the government to make sure that issues like flooding, issues like erosion, a whole lot of things that has to do with disasters that come with climate is being probably, let's say, measured or best eradicated.
Okay, now I would like to bring it to the local level. Now, for us at the university, I believe that Anambra University is actually doing its own path. Why? Number one, we have the National Center for Water Resources, which is the network center for the entire Southeast. We train on water resources management and all these disaster stuff. Then there's also Institute of Maritime Studies at Anambra University. Okay, and we have 2 standard meteorological stations which would record this data and use it for research. So as on the aspect of collaboration, we've already established collaboration with NIMET, Nigerian Meteorological Agency. That's where we can have this information and share data. We have collaboration with the National Water Resources Institute, Mando Kabina. And then I think much of the other collaborations we need to do, probably with ABS, to make this information available. And when we collect and analyze and come up with findings, make them available for proper dissemination of information to be able to guide Anambrians and for whatever foreseeable disaster that could come, or to prepare for be it climate change impact or whatever. So it's very important. Collaboration is critical for us to achieve sustainable development.
Thank you so much. On that note, we'll wrap up this segment on Good Morning Anambra, talking about accurate weather and measurement, using accurate data to shape our climate awareness. And then our guest was Dr. Chukwudi Nzoiwu, lecturer, Department of Geography and Meteorology, Nnamdi Azikiwe University. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
And we will definitely be calling upon you in that collaboration you're talking about, because the ABS will definitely want to play a key role in this awareness creation. Yeah. And that's how we'll wrap it up. The next segment is up on Good Morning Anambra. Don't go anywhere. The show continues.